All right, so for this one, I want to do a bit of a review of the Unplugged Alpha. It's a guide to winning with women in life. Here's the cover. This is basically, I came into this book shortly after college, like I think directly after actually. And it's been one that has like actually significantly helped me. At least in my way of thinking, it kind of got me into the red pill space in a way. Um, and has more or less shaped how I've kind of dealt with everything in a way, or at least thought about things. But basically, it's about a person named Rich Cooper. Not about it, but he wrote it. He's an entrepreneur, private equity investor, and he has a couple YouTube channels now. He actually has one called the Unplug Alpha, TUA, and he does, at this point, it's almost 200 podcasts or something. He's up there. He's done a lot of videos and been in the space for a while. But basically, we'll kind of talk a little bit more about what that means, especially that term that I said with red pill. So I'm not going to go, this isn't going to be an all-encompassing like ideology type thing. It's just kind of an introduction, start the kind of spark discussion in a way, and so on. But one of the things after he starts the book off and it kind of tells his unplugging story. That's kind of how it's described. You kind of unplug from, what you're told the entire world is like. And then basically he says, he believes wholeheartedly that a man's true mental health and happiness begins with an ability to navigate through life seeing things as they truly are, not as we've been told they are. And so it's kind of, actually seeing things for how they are in a way. And this starts off with basically this idea of a female primary social order. So basically, what he's going at with this is, the whole idea is men are the disposable sex, right? Kind of like we all kind of know that. As examples, he gives some research statistics actually. And so basically, one thing to note, or to quote, is the truth is any narrative that doesn't put the feminine first today will be manipulated. So it is therefore seen as misogyny by default. Basically, anything that kind of doesn't, put that idea first, in a way. So there's a lot of better ways to describe it, I guess. Another person to look into if you're so interested is Rollo Tomasi. He's been explaining it in this space, and this seems to be kind of like the leader in a way, more or less, for a couple decades, I think. It's been a long time since I've actually like read his books, a few years, so I don't remember exactly when he got into that kind of space, but anyways, some of those stats. So men and women have similar mortality rates with prostate and breast cancer, yet you see 6 times more money is spent on researching breast cancer. 85% of homeless people in the U.S. are men. Men get far longer prison sentences than women for exactly the same crime. 94% of workplace injuries are men. And there's a few other ones, but it just doesn't give specifics. And kind of, now that I'm thinking about it, this book, for time of statistics, for citations and stuff, the copyright for this book is in 2020. So if you want to compare stats and stuff, that's the time it was published, or copyrighted at least. But basically, those are some of the stats. And another thing to note is kind of like, at least pops up all the time on my social media, but 73% of adolescent murderers grew up without a father. 85% of adolescents with behavioral issues originate from fatherless homes, and 85% of youths in prisons grew up in fatherless homes. So it's not necessarily like, it's not the whole like toxic masculinity type thing is the bane of all childhood or whatever the kind of conversation is at this point. It's the lack thereof of at least like an actual like healthy masculine influence in a way. And finally, this whole idea is kind of I don't want to say prefaced, but it's important to talk about the term hypergamy. It's basically like, women's kind of social playbook is to marry up in the sociological ladder, right? That's kind of the whole point. They want someone better. That's kind of what they need in general, more or less. Obviously, with pretty much everything in this book or whatever, we're talking in generalities for the most part. There's obviously going to be specific cases here or there, and you can argue and so on. It's just kind of like general rules and general themes in a way, not necessarily specifics, right? There's always going to be cases to the contrary, more or less. Things to note. So women's rules, how they break them or make them. So if you want to get into the whole like alpha versus beta male stuff, it's basically the rule is, like women break rules for alphas and make them for betas. Basically how they're viewed in terms of kind of like respect in a way too. It's just different parts in what they need, more or less. So there's how do I want to word this? One thing to notice, and especially if you're a dude, you probably see it all the time, is, women will kind of subconsciously, it's called shit testing you all the time to see whether or not you're going to go which way, is in terms of like if you're going to be the alpha or the beta, if you want to use those terms. Basically, if you're just going to like be, I don't want to say pushover, but it can be viewed as such depending on the person. But it's kind of, are you more of like a provider role versus, kind of like a typically younger, hotter, just want to, like I want to have your kids rather than I want you to take care of my kids, because there is a difference, sort of thing. He also says, men need to understand anytime you negotiate desire, it automatically creates obligated, obligated. We'll go with that. Compliance, obligated compliance. Doesn't matter. Which leads to resentment, and nobody wants that. Apparently I'm not going to talk right this morning. But, obligated. Anyways, you can't really create that, what he calls a genuine burning desire. We'll get more into that later in the book. It's probably going to be a longer video anyways. You guys tend to like those to begin with. More people will at least ask for longer videos. Doesn't mean they necessarily watch them. But anyways, so why does this quote-unquote genuine burning desire matter, right? This is kind of his next little chapter. So it has to be natural. Like the whole idea is, at least with the red pill, more or less, and one of the phrases that he gives, the one that really helped me was like chase excellence, and not women or the other things, because it's more or less if you become that kind of person, in this case that kind of man, like that stuff's going to come to you in a way. It's going to be attracted to you to begin with. And it's not only like, it's not in a kind of, it's not purely in a selfish kind of way, like this frame, in terms of like there's a reason you're doing it, and so like intention kind of matters. You kind of just do it, at least that's the way I kind of view it. You just kind of, I have my work and the things that I do, like I work out all the time, I do well on my job and all this other stuff, and just like focus on always trying to be better and so on. And then it's just kind of people just want to be around you, especially ones that are positive influences that you want around you, because they're doing the same thing, and so they want to be with you, sort of thing. And once you kind of start negotiating desire with people who don't necessarily mesh with that, you kind of start to sacrifice your principles, hopefully, and just kind of like your needs in a way to where it's, in the long run, it's just going to lead to misery, it seems. And at this point, I'll preface again, or not really preface, but state, the whole point of this video is to kind of like post these things in terms of like pose the question, spark the discussion, and so on. things I've kind of started noticing, and it's kind of like a framework slash lens to look at things that has really helped me the past few years. We'll go into ways it can significantly not help you, which I have done as well. And we'll explain more on the whole like red pill rage in a minute. But anyways, genuine burning desire that you receive from a woman must be organic. You can't manufacture it or negotiate it. Anytime you negotiate desire, you obligate compliance in return, which only leads to resentment further down the line. Kind of what I was touching on before. So he says like your highest ROI in life will always be that of a man. And the quote, being a man of vision, purpose, and who is always chasing excellence. Kind of a whisper of that same kind of phrasing that I said earlier. Let's see. These are all kind of. It also talks about like the difference between like validational sex versus transactional sex. So you kind of like see that. Like, are you guys doing something because it kind of validates her because you are who you are? Or is it more of like, hey, you did the dishes, so I'm going to help you out with this? And then obviously the latter kind of leads to resentment and further problems down the road. Typically, obviously I haven't been in, like every marriage or whatever the hell. So maybe it works for some people, but doesn't for a lot from what I've been figuring out. The next chapter he has is 20 red flags, because it is a book guide for winning at women and life. And so 20 red flags to look for women, and I'll let him go into that. That's kind of his specialty, it seems. I think he even has, it's like, I don't know if it's an email list. It's been a while since I've really kind of went through his stuff besides the book again. But he really goes into red flags, like what to look out for and kind of like the reasons for it. So this one is, in the book he gives 20. I believe he has like an email list or some sign up thing, like where you can get like a free 20 extra ones or more explanations, so on, to go into that. Next, he talks about single mothers, which is one of the flags as well. But like I said, I'll leave the actual explanation and stuff of the flags for him. That's kind of his, I don't want to say his expertise, but it's more of, I'm not going to read the book for you sort of thing. Just kind of show you what's in it and then recommend it, talk a little bit about it. And if you guys want more of my opinion, or at least, like I said, to spark discussion, just let me know. That's what comment sections are for. But he talks about, basically, typically it leads into either cuckoldry, responsibility without authority, specifically with the kid. You're responsible for the kid as a stepdad, but you don't really have the authority over it most of the time, or in general. And at least in a lot of vocal cases that you see, a lot of the times it's the kid doesn't want your opinion or doesn't want your help sometimes. And then also like the mom will back up the kid a lot of the times. You see that with a lot of stories. And also can tend to lead to a victim mindset, financial issues, and kind of a different set of priorities than what would be advantageous for you, which that isn't to say whether or not that's a good or bad thing. That's just how it is, right? On the contrary, he does also talk about how like dating and being with single moms does make sense. He does give cases for that and explanations. Again, this isn't supposed to be like an absolute shit show about women, period, dot. It's like, this is kind of how things work. And, the whole point is like, this is how the world actually works. And so you can be mad about it. You can do what you want about it. But like, and we'll talk about those types of people at the end of the book, specifically like, I think that's pronounced Migto, or the whole men go their own way sort of thing, basically live without women just because of everything, which you can be kind of like that kind of immature, always mad about everything sort of thing. Or you could just, like learn to accept that this is how it is and it's that way for a reason, for like psychology and or psychological and kind of like historical reasons. There's a reason for this. It's just how nature is for us. And obviously with this whole video, I'm kind of glossing over the top. Like I said, he has hundreds of longer form YouTube videos about these topics too. So this is kind of a general gloss over of maybe it's the first time you ever got into the space. But anyways, those are things for that. Kind of use women as you do kind of like a business in a way, in terms of, let me rephrase that, is like how you hire slowly and fire quickly, like with employees. He says a good quote in there for that, but basically like you want to like vet in general. It just makes sense. Like, I don't know why you don't, put a ring on the first one who touches you. So just in general, you take your time vetting people. You want to make sure they're actually going to be good for you, but like fire them quickly if they do something really bad, sort of thing. To take the quote from him is, take your time vetting people, get to know them and study their behavior. The choices someone makes and how they behave should always trump what they tell you if there is a conflict between actions and words, which is something I'm sure everyone heard as a kid almost. Actions speak louder than words. And he notes from his experience, anytime he's gotten into trouble with women, employees, business partners, or anything else, it was because he didn't listen to his intuition and fire that person from his life quick enough. He just kind of held them around longer and longer, and it led to further problems down the road, right? There's that one. He further talks about looks, money, status, and game. Basically, work with what you got, improve your looks as much as possible. Just be confident and want to look nice. Just not necessarily for, it's kind of secondarily for other people, right? But just like be confident in how you look, sort of thing. Don't be delusional, but like actually put an effort in, self-care and making yourself look good and feel better. Money, just you have to be able to provide for yourself at least, and hopefully at some point someone else, in terms of, and you also want like have fun. It's just general life stuff. Just like always try to like make your life better in a way in every aspect, and that's pretty much it. Status is a big thing too, in terms like people who are seen higher, like social standing. The kind of psychology changes too, it seems. So it's like, you're more confident and so on. He talks about, at least with the look aspect, there's kind of like an optimal, it's like 1.62 shoulder to hip ratio. So like a lot wider shoulders down to like a V taper for the waist. You don't have to be shredded, but like, at least for males, the whole structured upper body for like strong upper body strength. So like the outers, like your traps, shoulders, and so on, like you want to look bigger and nice. Don't neglect legs. That's something that's actually my favorite thing to do, but it's just, you just take care of yourself, dude. If you don't know game, learn it. I'm not going to go really into game in this conversation. Trust me, there's a lot of ways to learn it. Just kind of start looking into the space, and then you don't have to be a PUA, but look it up. That's PUA, and you don't figure out what works for you. Like, just do better, sort of thing. I don't know if that kind of sounds like being an asshole, but seriously, just try to. There's a reason why like I kind of sympathize to the stoic viewpoint in a way. Like, there's only so much you can do. Just take care of what you can, and like just what's the point in laying in bed all day? Just do what you need to, and so on. Getting a little off topic, but anyways, also talks about managing your endocrine system. So it's your testosterone. He gives, basically the whole thing is optimal, not normal. So you want to have optimal test levels, optimal hormone levels in general. Just perform at the best you can all the time. Obviously that's going to change. I'm not saying you have to run yourself in the ground or red line all the time, but actually like make it a point to make your life better and the people around you's life better. That's kind of the whole point. Um, what's the point in just sitting around playing video games and wasting your life away? Does not saying they don't have a point, but regardless. There's that. He talks about online dating since that's a big thing nowadays. Again, I'll leave that stuff to him. It's his book. Talks about different types of relationships and the pros and cons, and that's talking like, let me give you some more specifics on that one. But he talks about the title of the chapter is actually Promiscuous Primates, and he talks about like sexual strategy, how that changes, stuff about monogamy, cycles, those types of things, in the more sexual realm, in terms of not necessarily, he doesn't really go like into the science. I don't know if that's just from my background with physics, and so like for me, into the science is like actual like peer-reviewed articles. He doesn't write that kind of stuff. That's not what you're gonna find in the book. It's more of like, okay, it seems like he's read those articles and so on, and he understands the topics. You're gonna find the synopsis in the book, sort of thing. Talks about one-itis, the whole idea of, she's the only one ever for me, which is kind of stupid, more or less. I'm more sympathized with the view, there's good ones and there's bad ones. Find the good ones, sort of thing. Stay away from the bad ones. To kind of gloss over the topic, again, this is a general thing. If we want to talk more specifics later, just ask me questions. I have no problem with it. Also, on a motorcycle. That's a whole chapter in and of itself, not only for what you can use it for, but kind of what it requires. So like it requires you to be balanced, have strength, and be dexterous, I guess, or have dexterity. But he describes it as a way of masculine therapy in a way. It's a confidence thing. You have to be competent to not die on a motorcycle. Like, just be a competent person. And it's one of those things. It's kind of like, working out for so long. It's like, it's simple, not easy, sort of thing. It's simple to do this. Just keep doing it, get better slowly over time. You don't have to make it crazy difficult. You don't have to try to be an Olympian. Just do better and take care of yourself all the time. And it's all the time that's hard. So it's simple to do, just not very easy for decades, sort of thing. Another one of his chapters, he says, master violence. So what women want is a dangerous man that is civilized, is a quote. I've always, forgot who said the view. It was probably like Jocko Willink or someone along those lines. It was basically like, you have to be able to fight and then hold a baby in the same day. It's just, you have to have that dichotomy as a man nowadays. And just in general, like, you have to have that, like, that part's the protection of the family versus care for the family, in a way, it seems. That kind of idea. And he has a chapter on that for you guys. Then this is also where he starts to go into like the black pill solution, which is the MGTOWs, the men go their own way sort of thing, which is just kind of, I get it. You feel scorned from whatever situation you have or have had or what's happened in your life, but like, it still kind of seems kind of immature and childish in a way. To each their own. I'm sure there are some very well thought out, rationalized reasons that people have for it. It doesn't make sense to me. So he goes into that, like I said earlier, learn to accept that this is how the world works and this is how people are, for a reason. It's not that they're bad, they're like this way for a reason. And just learn how to navigate and how the world actually works. It's like, maybe you want to do some business idea, but there's legal reasons or red tape why you can't do it. There's no point in just like crying to yourself on your couch about it. Like, just figure out a way to do something else or work around it or whatever the case may be. You just kind of have to figure it out slowly. And he kind of closes off on, marriage. So it talks about, like, he even quoted himself on this one. He says, marriage is a high reward, low risk choice for women, but a low reward, high risk choice for men. Obviously not talking about, like DV cases and all that kind of stuff. Like, we're not getting into that. We're not getting into the statistics for this. It's a generalized statement. And if you want, we can look more into stuff like that too. Just ask. But I'm just showing this book because it's something that's helped me in my life, at least. It talks in this chapter, it talks about like divorce and suicide, children and divorce, how marriage kind of changes men throughout time as well, and how things typically tend to go. And again, I remember he has, I forget the name of his group, but he has this group where he kind of coaches men and so on. He's been doing this for years. And so this book wasn't just written by one guy's point of view. It was more or less like, this is the experience of the thousands of people he's dealt with in their situations and so on, and across his I remember two off the top of my head: Entrepreneurs in Cars and the Unplugged Alpha, or two YouTube channels I know he has that I know have had hundreds of videos, I think hundreds of thousands of subscribers without looking it up. Like, he's been in the space for a while. He's someone to actually listen to. And I really liked him because he's not one of those screaming in your face type of that you tend to get with the red pill stuff, or can get. It's more of like kind of a calmer, mature version of it. This is how it works. What are you going to do about it? There's no reason to get all amped up and crazy about it. Just, this is what's helpful. This is what actually works and how the world works. Do your best, sort of thing. Probably could describe it in a more accurate way, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I know I went to his Unplugged Alpha YouTube channel, and he just posted, at least when I did the notes for this 2 days ago, he was at episode 169, and he has other stuff too. I think that's just his podcast. But again, I kind of really started getting into him right in the space like directly after college. So like 22 to 24 was when I kind of studied it a lot more. It's been kind of on the back burner a little bit now. I don't want to say back burner, but I haven't been actively studying it or in the space. And it's just kind of wanted to show you guys, like, hey, this thing is helpful. Use it, read it, and it's only not even 200, barely 200 pages. The glossary is at 203. Like, just read it quick, and I'm sure there's an audiobook or something for this one, but I actually physically read that one. But yeah, this is short little 30-minute video. But anyways, I'll leave this one here. Let me know if you have any questions or want to talk about. I kind of just talked about the general topics in a period, so just let me know if you have any questions or want to talk about more stuff in general. But it's something that has helped me significantly thus far, so I thought I'd share it, regardless of the fight back that I get on it or might get on it. But regardless, we'll see how it is. As always, I'll put cards and playlists and stuff, and I hope to see you guys on the next one.